I'm Andrew Joseph Keith, and in this video I'm going to be adding a beard onto a self-portrait sculpture that I did as a demo for the portrait sculpting course. And if you're interested in portrait sculpting, there's actually a free PDF, a portrait sculpting assignment checklist, has links to all of the free video lessons that I've done on the portrait, including one of the videos on sculpting this, what I call the 10 steps to portrait sculpting. Really helpful video. Check it out if you're interested, and let's go ahead and get into the sculpting part. So this clay is Dollar Tree non-drying modeling clay. Comes in a bunch of colors, and I took out some of the darkest colors and melted everything else to get this brown color. Here you can see the reference that I'm working with and the sculpture, and I'm just going to try to copy this silhouette. This rough silhouette gives me a starting point to work from. To take these reference images, I just put a softbox light behind my head, and then I had this other main softbox light, and then I just turned around slowly while I was recording, and that gives me 360-degree view to be able to work from. Here you can see how I can control the angle that I'm seeing, draw a center line that I'm going to be drawing on, and just taking little pieces of clay, heading them flavor saver area right below the lip. Soul patch, that's what they call it. And it looks like the beard extends a little bit past the Adam's apple, pushing these pieces of clay on to the center line. And so I'm approaching this the same way that I did with the rest of the portrait, starting with a outline from the side view, and then we're going to be filling that in from the front view. Something like that. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to turn to the front view. Beard starts kind of down here. I also have kind of like bald patches over here. Then we're going to follow the mass down. Here you can see that's coming down and forward. We want to build out the mass by slowly growing it rather than removing pieces of clay, trying to follow the general shape of the beard forward. Here you can see that I'm thinking very two-dimensionally as I'm starting, drawing a line in space with a wall of clay. It looks like I have one of those fake Santa beards that's like pulled down over my chin. And the beard really changes the shape of the face. That's why sometimes if you're sculpting somebody with a beard, it helps to imagine them without a beard first. If you're sculpting with that beard, what we want to do when we put in the beard, we think of that as the chin, and then we want to move the eyes down. I've done that when I was doing the portrait. I wanted to bring the eyes down, say that the beard was the chin, and usually proportions are the eyes are about midway in the face. But when you add a beard onto that, it makes the chin larger and really changes the whole shape of the face. Some women prefer men that have beards. My wife prefers the beard on me, so that's good enough for me. So you can see how that's coming along. At this stage, I'm looking at it from the front view, making sure that I'm capturing that silhouette or outline from the front view. Just looking at these lines right here. So in this sculpture, it looks like I did have a little bit of a goatee, but now we can actually come and draw out the shape of the beard. So like I said, I have like a little bald spot right here. So I'm gonna put that in. And then my mustache starts just a little bit off from the center line. I'm going to push this in just a little bit. But I think the beard does help the shape of my face, because when my mouth is closed and my teeth are together, the bottom of my chin is a little bit closer to the nose than the average. Generally not a good look. But when I grow that beard out, then it lengthens that. So then we have this soul patch area. I'm not thinking about texture too much at this point. You can think about like what direction is the hair going, and then maybe lay pieces of clay in that direction. But for the most part, you're just thinking about it as a mass. A common beginner mistake is getting into the texture too early or making the texture too dramatic. And it actually kind of detracts from and distracts from the shape, and it can make it look more amateur rather than more realistic. Then my beard is also a little bit thinner on the cheeks, so I'm going to allow it to kind of blend up here once I get to that. So here you can see what it's looking like at this stage. Sometimes I'll put the clay in so that there's a little air pocket inside, and that just saves some clay. And you don't really need a ton of structure. Like with this area right here, you know, I could fill that in all the way, or I could just take a piece of clay and just cover it up. So I'm just going to cover that spot right there. It's thin up here, so it's going to kind of blend into the cheeks, blend into the temple area over here. Now I'm going to look at it from the 3/4 view, about this angle right here, and try to capture the shape of the beard from this angle. Like right here, what's the shape of it from right here, the 3/4 view? The mustache comes out on the 3/4 view, And then it comes out right here quite a bit. It kind of bulges out and then tapers down. So the high point is about where my actual chin is. It's where the high point is and then tapers. So there you can see that line of clay. And then once I have that in place, then I can just round to this other wall of clay that I've drawn out. You can just round this off by adding pieces of clay in between those two. Do the same thing on this side, looking at this line right here. And it'll probably be about the same, but sometimes there is a little bit of a discrepancy between the sides. It's about the same. But this side, I can't see that high point as much, but I know that it's in, so I'm gonna still try to exaggerate that a little bit and then connect everything by just adding pieces of clay. So now I've looked at the side for these lines. I can draw those in. Looked at what the silhouette looks like from these lines and then from also this side view. Now I'm just rounding things off. So I'm just filling in that negative space in between those, because the general shape of my beard is pretty round. You know, you can shape the beard, and I have shaped this, like I've trimmed areas, so I prefer a little bit thinner around the ears, even though usually if you have a patchy beard, it's not really thick in areas, you don't want to thin it down, but I just don't like long hairs getting into my ears, so. But for the most part, I've just allowed the roundness to stay in. Okay, so now I'm just going to look at it from the side to see the shape of that, and it does just wraps around and comes forward. We got that high point, comes down, and then this does travel in. Say that it's about like that. I've laid that in. And I might feel that, maybe some areas I'll have laid out too thick. I can always just push those in a little bit. I'm gonna go back to the front view because I feel like it's like a little bit too wide. I'm looking at this distance between here and here. That's the widest point of the skull, and I'm seeing, like, does my beard pass that? And some hairs go past it, but I think the main mass of the beard is within that high point on the back. So I'm actually gonna trim this side part down just a little bit by pulling off some clay. So I'm just thinning this out right here. Let's go to the other side and fill in this area. And we're getting pretty close to there when it comes to the mass of the beard. So pretty soon we're gonna start working on the texture, and I'll show you how I like to approach that. Yeah, this is a soft clay. Soft clays work great for larger sculptures because you can move things around pretty quickly. For smaller sculptures or super detailed sculptures, you usually want something a little bit firmer. Okay, so here's what it's looking like at this point where I've laid in the mass of the clay by building out those walls to represent different angles, and I feel pretty comfortable with the shape and form. It doesn't feel too wide right now, and so I think I can start to go in and texture this sculpture. So let's go ahead and do that. Just add a couple more pieces here. It's really fun. It's a difficult thing. The portrait is difficult. Everything about it is hard. All right, let's go ahead and start to texture. So for this, I have my favorite tool. This is kind of a little spatula tool. It's the tool I used to get the texture for the rest of this sculpture. Though you can see that clay is kind of shiny when it sets up for a while. But I'm gonna go to the side view with my reference, and I'm just gonna take this tool and try to actually blend in the beard to the area of the skin. So there's going to be some areas where, that separation between the beard and the skin is very soft, and that's actually true in reality. Generally, I mean, unless you have somebody with a really thick beard and then they cut the line, sometimes you see that and there's like a very distinct line. But for the most part, where the hair transitions to the skin, whether it's in the forehead or in the beard, it's generally a soft transition because it starts thinner and then that hair gets thicker as it moves down. So I'm going to try to keep that very soft, especially since my beard is very thin in these areas. You can see as I do that, the mass itself is communicating that this is a beard. I don't even have to do a different texture than the rest of the portrait. I can just say with the mass that this is a beard, but I'm not treating it differently. I'm not texturing it differently. I'm not getting like an actual comb out and brushing it. In fact, let me do that. Let me show you guys what it looks like if you overdo the texture. So this is a beginner mistake that I see all the time. We're going to take a comb and we're just gonna give texture to the beard. Just gonna put hair on the beard. To me, when I see this kind of texture, it just feels amateur and it doesn't feel soft. It makes it feel like coarse and strange, and somebody described it as like metallic. If you have these lines, or if you just like go through and just like make a bunch of texture lines, that it doesn't actually look very good. And so what I recommend and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tool and I'm going to treat it just like any other mass. Smooth it out. I'm going to allow that line between the beard and the cheek to disappear entirely. And I'm just going to let the mass speak for itself. You might think that it looks better with this thick texture. Maybe somebody has a really dark beard and so you want to show that with lots of thick texture, and that's an artistic choice that you can make. But if you're not thinking about it, and if you don't realize that the main thing that differentiates it is the mass and where it's placed and the shape of it, those are the main things, the most important things to get right first. And if you can get those things right, you don't need the texture as much to be a differentiator between the skin and the beard. It just kind of speaks for itself. I think a lot of the difficulty comes from you're just thinking about it like hair, like you're sculpting hair. But just think about it like you're sculpting something soft and flowing, a soft flowing form that doesn't have the individual hairs in it. It's just a soft form in space. And if you do that, then generally you'll be able to find more success with sculpting it more accurately and in a way that feels more lifelike. If there's areas where I feel like it needs just a little bit more, I'll just grab a piece of clay with the tool and then place that on. Gonna take a little piece and smooth out this transition. Make that nice and smooth, dragging that clay up to smooth out that transition between the cheek and the beard. Keep going to the side. As I'm texturing, I'm trying to kind of switch things up with either the direction of the form or the direction of the stroke, the shape of the form. Maybe I'll come in a little bit more in some areas just to show that this is a different material. Blend this as well. Generally, simplifying it in a way where you can tackle one angle at a time is a good idea for whatever part of the body you're sculpting. Starting with a simple form that you can then add the silhouette on top of, just like I did with this beard. It's a useful way to approach any part of the body. We have to simplify things or we get lost. One step at a time, focusing on only one silhouette or outline really does make things easier. So here you can see there's the difference between the texture on that side. And then if I turn it to this side, the texture of just laying in the pieces of clay, and then once we start blending that in. And I actually feel like up here needs to be blended a little bit more. I'm going to go to this other side and work on that. But I kind of like the idea of trying to do this more where I'm doing the live stream for the full process, but then I'll edit that together. More content, not everybody wants to watch an hour demo. Just going to work on this under part of the beard, and I'm just primarily smoothing it out by rolling the tool, pressing it against the surface, and softening that line. I don't want a sharp transition anywhere, really, when it comes to the hair. I want it to be very soft, that feels more organic. If it's a hard transition, like if I drew a sharp line for the transition to the hair, then it looks like a wig. It looks fake. Okay, it's coming along, but I do feel like it's a little bit more, I don't know if it's more like full or there's not as much variation as I like. So I'm just going to come with a tool and just bring out some negative space in some areas. And I'm not going to leave the texture like this, so I'm going to texture it back the way it was. But I just feel like pulling out some inside areas might help. So I'm just coming in and kind of gouging out with this loop tool a few marks, and then I'm going to come back and texture it back. Gouged out some areas, and now I'm just going to blend those so that the texture feels the same as the rest of what I've been working on. I think that texture, well, I'm trying to decide if I think that texture adds a little bit better or if it makes it worse. I don't know if I do prefer that texture. Try to soften it a little bit. Maybe it's just too extreme. Just soften it a little bit. Rolling the tool over the surface, blending those forms. I want the beard to feel soft, organic. Okay, I'm just going to soften this area right here. I hope you check out those links in the description for the sculpture assignment checklists. the free PDFs for the figure sculpting course and for the portrait sculpting course. If you're just interested in figurative art in general, then you might check out my ebooks, An Artist's X-Ray Vision. There's one on the male figure, one on the female figure. They're full of helpful visual diagrams and lenses through which you can view the figure to help you see like an artist a little bit better. All right, thank you guys for watching. Again, I hope that you'll check out the free PDF that I have, the portrait sculpting PDF. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. There's also the figure sculpting course and the hand sculpting course. All of those are available. Yeah, this was really fun. It was fun adding a beard, and now I feel like it's official. I've solidified this look into my image as an artist for now. The beard took a little bit to get used to, but what can I say? It's grown on me. All right, stay creative. Stay productive, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in another video.